Hi, my name is Dimitri Creer, and this is a presentation about Edward Sheriff Curtis. This is a quote from President Roosevelt about what Edward Curtis's intentions were and how he really was able to um, succeed and fulfill his. This is a quote from President Theodore Roosevelt in an excerpt. This is an excerpt from a letter to Edward H. Harriman from President Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt. Start over. Hi, my name is Dimitri Creer, and this is a presentation about Edward Sheriff Curtis. This is a quote from an excerpt from a quote from President Theodore Roosevelt to Edward H. Harriman. Not only are Mr. Curtis's photos genuine work of art, but they also deal with some of the more picturesque phases of the old-time American life that is now passing away, which is a great way to summarize what Edward Curtis was trying to do and capture the um, American Indian and how they are now fading away. Hi, my name is Dimitri Creer, and this is a presentation about Edward Sheriff Curtis. This is an excerpt from a quote that President Roosevelt wrote to Edward H. Harriman, encompassing what Edward Curtis was really trying to do in getting people's attention and having them appreciate and enjoy and like what he was portraying of the American Indian, unlike in the 19th century what the Euro Americans were portraying them as. Edward Curtis was born in 1868 in Wisconsin, and he grew up in poverty. His father was very ill, and he was never fully able to support his family. After his father died, Edward had to take on a series of odd jobs, ultimately settling with photography as a career. Um, he taught himself not only how to build a camera, but how to use one and how to create the mediums in the photographing process. As he got a little older, he became an apprentice in a studio in St. Paul, Minnesota. Afterwards, relocating to nearby town in a town nearby Seattle, Washington, in which he was able to start his own studio photography practice. Um, he was curious, and he was curious of the American Indian and began investigating the um, the American Indians nearby locally, and his photographs garnished a lot of attention, and people really appreciated and enjoyed and admired his photographs. And after many years of uh, excursions, and his health deteriorated, and he became older, and at the age of 84 in 1952 he died of a heart attack. So he's most famously known for his 20-volume project entitled The North American Indian, in which he started locally. He garnished up some high-profile acquaintances, one known as Edward H. Harriman, who was a very wealthy man, took him on an excursion to Alaska. He was one of two photographers and ethnologists, and they documented the tribes and what was going on in Alaska, and that also caught the attention of President Theodore Roosevelt, who really admired his photographs and also admired the American Indians, in which he wanted to do whatever he could to help Curtis, and he referred Curtis to the financier J.P. Morgan. So on his trips to all over the country. He recorded details and made notes and became somewhat of a brother or someone who very close to the Native Americans. And he met up with over 80 tribes, and he had over 40,000 images, and it took around 20 to 30 years to complete. And in that 20 volume project, there was about 1,500 photographs used. And because he was absent a lot from his family, he ended up losing his family. However, his children remained close to him, no matter throughout his trips. So this is a very famous photograph depicting the Navajo and depicting the entire all of the Indians as an entire race that were, you know, disappearing into darkness and fading away. And this is another very famous photograph of, once again, the Navajo, but depicting the Indian as an entire race being driven away because of Euro American and their expansion. And so these next few photographs are very intimate pictures because, like I said, he was very close. He learned their traditions, ceremonies, fashion, and their language, and he was able to get real close and personal with the American Indians. And he traveled all over. This was a Kahitika tribe of a young woman, and here we have another. He uses different photo processes. Here we have the Hopi Man, another photogravure, which was the predominant process he used. He was very up and close and personal with the people, and this image here was very iconic because he captured them in their natural state, and it was even with everything, even though they had everything going, all the things going on with the expansion, they were still in their natural state, and he really wanted to capture that, and he used his gold tone or his Kurt tone process in this photograph. So we have another photogravure, and he also used the gelatin silver print, and it just really shows the culture and their habits and what he really wanted to show them as a real people. And once again, more culture and so the significance. He was a self-taught photographer. He was not exactly a pictorialist nor a modernist. He was more of a photojournalist because he used social documentary and straight photography. Predominantly used the photogravure and the gelatin prints and Kurt tones or the gold tones, and he really, and shed truth on the Native Americans and the Indians and how they really were, unlike in the early 19th century. So the most important legacy of Curtis' accomplishments is the expression of the extraordinary and deeply felt sympathy of the personal and spiritual American Indians.